Hey guys, this is Matt for cgtuts.com, and in this tutorial we're going to be modeling this. This is the Boss Tu-2 effects pedal. Now to model it I'm going to be using Modo 302. I realise the new version just came out but I haven't upgraded yet, and as we're just going to be concentrating purely on the modeling during this, we should be pretty much okay. Now there's not going to be anything particularly application specific in here apart from some of the work plane customizations and a couple of the falloffs, especially to model some of the more tricky screen detail. So it should all be pretty much possible in other applications, it might just take you a little bit more time. In this first part of the tutorial, I'm going to be running through some of the basics of Modo whilst we model the main elements of the pedal body. I'm going to start by creating the side profile and then extruding across the pedal for the width. We'll then add bevels to the edges and finally we'll add in the bottom pad. In the second part of the tutorial, we'll be adding in all of the extra details such as the jack inputs, the screen and the Boss logo. And I'll really be ramping things up in that tutorial after hopefully laying down the groundwork in this one. So let's get into Modo. Okay, so if you open Modo and load up the reference scene, which I've included with this tutorial, you'll find these 6 reference images. And that's really the first thing that I'd advise you do with all of your product design. If you can get good references, then the whole process becomes a lot easier, a lot smoother, you're going to make less mistakes, and it's a lot less stressful, which is really a key thing. You're not always going to be able to find good orthographical images like these ones, but if you can get technical specifications or sketches or anything like that from your client, or you find images of similar objects on Google, then you'll be that step closer to knowing more about your object, and the process becomes a little bit easier. The second thing I quickly want to mention are keyboard shortcuts. I use a whole bunch of them in Modo. It makes modeling a lot quicker. Instead of coming up into menus, you can just keep kind of working and your workflow becomes quicker and easier. The two that I really particularly want to draw your attention to right now that I use a lot, and chances are I'm going to forget to mention them a couple times, are switching between modes, which is vertices, edges, and polygons. I'm going to be using the 1, 2, and 3 keys on my keyboard. And the second is when changing views. Now, normally you can come up here to where it says perspective, click once, and then you get a list of all of the views you can jump to, such as left. Instead of coming up to here all the time, what you can do is hold down Control and Space in your viewport, and keeping it held down you get this pop-up menu. Now you can select an option, say perspective, and if you let go, you jump back to the perspective view, and that just makes your workflow a lot quicker and easier. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to a left view, so I'm going to hit Control and Space in our viewport and go to left. I'm then going to zoom in. And remember, we're going to start by making the side profile of this main body section and the side profile of this pedal section. Now we're going to be working on the main body first, so I'm going to come over to our item list, go to our mesh layer, right click and hit rename, and I'm going to call that main body, which just keeps things nice and organized. And I have slight OCD tendencies about naming things over there, so that'll be nice. So what we're going to do now is make this polygon here. So I'm going to come up to the basic menu in the tools menu and go to the cube tool. I'm just going to click and drag out a polygon over this section. Now what we're doing right now doesn't need to be particularly precise, but what I'm looking to do is match this top edge, this left edge, this bottom edge, and get this right edge to about the base of this lip here. So you can use these crosses on the sides of this poly to kind of pull this in while the tool's still active. So this one was a little bit off, which wasn't too good. Well, maybe pull it out a little bit. As I said, it doesn't need to be precise right now. We're going to move the verts around in a bit, but you know, the closer you do it now, the less moving you'll have to do. So that looks pretty good, and when you're happy with it, you hit space to drop the tool. And we can't see anything. That's because in Modo, by default, the polygons are created one-sided. And you can change that in the material settings, but all we're going to do in this case is flip this polygon around. And I'm going to hit the F key on my keyboard to do that. And then you can see the polygon. Now what we need to do is extend this edge out to the end of the pedal. So I'm going to go to Edges mode, I'm going to hit 2 on my keyboard. I'm going to select this end edge, and I'm going to hit the Z key on my keyboard, which brings up the edge extend options. I'm going to right click in the viewport to activate it, which brings up our handles, and I'm going to pull out the blue handle to the end of the pedal. So something like that. And when you're happy, you can hit the space key to drop the tool. We now need to create this top lip section, and there are a couple ways you can do it. You can make some cuts and move some verts around, but we're going to do exactly the same as we just did with this polygon. We're going to grab this top edge, hit the Z key, Z or Z, on my keyboard. I'm going to right click in the viewport to activate the tool and then pull up on the green arrow. So I'm just looking to get it to roughly the same height as that. As I said, this is only rough for now. And when you're happy, space to drop the tool. Now obviously this section of the pedal is a lot higher than it needs to be. It needs to be down here. So I'm going to grab this edge, I'm going to hit the W key for the move tool and just pull that guy down. Now the eagle-eyed among you will notice that I'm not really paying much attention to these bevels at the moment. There's one there, And there's one over here that I've missed out as well. And that's because we're just kind of blocking out the geometry. I'm just trying to line up with the straight edges on either side of the bevel. And then if we do that, and we do that kind of well, then when we bevel in a minute, it should kind of take care of itself, which is a useful thing. So that looks pretty good to me. So I think, well, I could pull down these bottom edges a little bit more. So I'm going to drop that tool. I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to shift select this edge. I'm going to activate the move tool, which is W. And notice we can't see it. It's actually off screen here in the middle of these two selected edges. Now, what I want to be doing is looking at the back reference here. And obviously, I need to be quite zoomed in for that. So I don't want to have to come out here, move down a little bit, and then kind of zoom back in and see, oh, no, I'm not quite right. So what you can do is, as long as your action center in this menu is set to automatic, it means you can right-click anywhere in the viewport, and that sets your action center to that position where you clicked. So this means I can move these edges up and down from here, being very close to the position I want in the reference, and that makes things a bunch easier. So about there looks good. So I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and we can start tweaking our verts about. Now this guy is obviously wrong, so I'm going to zoom in on him, hit 1 to go to vert mode, select that guy, W for the move tool, and then I'm going to use the red circle here, which moves in both the y-axis and the z-axis, kind of grab that guy into place. Now you can use kind of these guys to move on one axis only, but what this guy means is it's not moving towards or away from you on the screen, it's just moving perpendicular to the camera, to use the proper term. There we go. So that guy looks about right. This guy is maybe a little low, so I'm going to switch to edge mode. I'm going to grab this guy, W for the move tool. It's maybe a little bit far over there, so I'm going to right click here to move our action center and pull that guy up. I'll look over here, this guy seems to be a little bit off, so I'm going to hit space to drop the current move tool. I'm going to select this edge, I'm going to hit W for the move tool and pull this guy out a little bit. Check on the bottom, I think the bottom one looks good, we've moved that one already. This guy looks cool, I could maybe move this guy up a little bit, so I'm going to hit space to drop the current tool. I'm going to select this edge, hit W for the move and pull this up just a little bit, just to match this top edge here. So that looks pretty good, so I'm going to hit space to drop that. Zoom out to check it, and that seems to be the main body section done. Okay, so now we're going to move on to make this top pedal section. There are a couple ways we can do that, but either way we're going to need a new mesh layer. So I'm going to come over to the items list, click new item and select mesh, and then going to right click it, rename it to pedal top. Pedal top sounds good, doesn't it? So as long as that's selected, it means that we'll be working in the pedal top layer. Now there are a couple ways we can go about this. We can use the cube tool to kind of drag out a polygon like we did before. We could copy a polygon from the main body layer and paste it into the pedal top layer and then just tweak the verts. But there's a very good tool that is perfect for this kind of process, and it's in the polygon menu, and it's called the pen tool. Now if you click it, you'll notice that there are a bunch of options down here, and these guys are actually usually on. And with these on, it means that you get a good amount of snapping, and that's really useful for when you want to kind of get these straight edges and you want all of your verts to be kind of lining up in a really cool way. But if I undo that quickly, for something like this where you want it to be ever so slightly not quite parallel, it just makes things a little bit tricky. So if I undo that, what we're going to do is use the pen tool, but we're going to turn off these bottom options like that. So with none of these checked, we're going to start placing these verts. So that one there, come on, move that guy there, that one over there, and that one down there. And you'll notice that the last selected vert is yellow. If you select, say, this guy up here because you're not happy with his placement, you can kind of hover over him. It goes a bit yellow. If you click, now that one's yellow, and it means that you can kind of click and drag it and move it about. So you can do that on all of these if they're not in position. So that looks about right. As I said, this only needs to be rough as well, really. This isn't too precise right now. But once you're happy, you hit space to drop the tool, zoom in a little bit and go to vert mode, so hit 1, and if needs be you can select these. That was a lasso select with the middle mouse button. Hit the move tool and you move this down just a little bit. That looks fine, so I'm going to hit space to drop that. Come over to this side. That one looks pretty good, I think. Let's move it about just a little bit. Actually, maybe move this top one just a tiny bit as well. So I'm going to move it up and go to about there, which looks pretty good. So space to drop the tool, zoom out, and we have that. Okay, with that done, we now need to extrude the width of the pedal, so I'm going to switch to perspective view, so control space in the viewport and switch to perspective. I'm then going to zoom out a little bit, and you'll notice that all of our polygons have been created at 0 on the x-axis, so we need to move them to one side before we extrude out the width of the pedal. Now, if I switch to polygon mode by hitting 3 and try and select all of these polygons at the moment, we'll only select that top one, and that's because the pedal top layer is the only layer that's currently selected. So what we need to do is hold down Shift and select the main body layer as well, which makes them both dark blue and gives them both this orange icon. And then if we lasso select around the pedal profiles, we select all of the polygons. So I'm going to switch to the top view to give us a reference to move them along with. I'm going to activate the move tool with the W key and just bring these to the side. So something like that looks good. Once you're happy, space to drop the tool. And now we need to use the extrude tool. Now the extrude tool is in the mesh edit menu at the bottom here, but you'll see it's got a little X next to it, which means the keyboard shortcut is X. So I'm going to hit X on my keyboard to activate the polygon extrude. I'm going to right click in the viewport to bring up the arrows and drag this out using the red arrow. So about to there. And when you're happy, you press space to drop the tool. Now Modo has a really useful symmetry feature, which basically means that if you select a vertex over here, it will select it across an axis. The same works across the y-axis and the x-axis as well. Now, at the moment, we're not quite sure whether or not all of these polys are exactly in the center of the x-axis. So what we could do is quickly select them. So I'm going to lasso select around all of these guys, like that. I'm going to come up to the basic menu, and down here there's an option that says center selected. Now if you click that, you can choose to center selected on all, X, Y, Z, or on any two axes. Now we want to center on the x-axis, so I'm going to hit X. And it probably won't be noticeably moved, but if it was slightly off, sometimes the symmetry messes up a bit, and this just makes sure that we can use it later on if we want it. So I'm now going to switch to a perspective view to see what we've got, and you'll notice our basic shape of the pedal is almost complete. We have one last thing that we need to do. Now if I go to a side view, you'll see we've got this bit which stretches from the main body section up into the middle of the pedal. So to make that, we want to hide this pedal section because we don't want to see that, so I'm going to basically click where it says main body, which only makes the main body layer selected. Then if you click the eye next to pedal top, it hides it for us, and that's exactly what we want. Now I'm going to go to perspective mode. I'm going to select this top poly only, and there are a couple of ways that we can go about this. Now when I initially modeled this pedal, I selected this top poly, beveled it in, and then extruded it up. And the beveling being a very simple command, I naturally thought it would be the way to go. But as it turns out, it gave me a couple of problems later on. However, they're problems that come up a lot when modeling things like this. So I thought it would be useful for me to make that mistake now and then have to fix that problem in a little bit. So just to tell you, I meant to make this mistake. It's not something that I'm doing accidentally. I meant to make it. It's all planned. It's all part of the plan. So what I'm going to do is with the polygon selected, I'm going to hit B for bevel, which brings up the bevel options. I'm going to right click in the viewport and we get these two handles. Now the blue one is shift, which will pull the polygon out along its normal, and the red one is inset, which kind of insets the polygon, it kind of shrinks it within its bounds, and that's the one we want. So I'm going to pull in the handle a little bit to start insetting it. Now obviously we can't see quite how much it needs to be inset from this view, so I'm going to go back to a side view and notice we've lost the red handle, and that's because it's hidden behind kind of this blue one along the polygon facing away from us. So there are two options here. You can use the inset option over here and kind of just pull the sliders and kind of get that roughly right, like that. That looks pretty good. Or you could always just go into a front or back view, say, and try and find it. Now you can't see it in the back view. Front view, yes, you can kind of see it there. So we can pull it out a little bit more maybe. But what I typically do, you know, the less view changes you can do, the better. So what I'd probably do would be to stay in the left view and just use this insert slider. Now, you'll notice over here we've gone 4 millimeters. It switches between basically 1/10 of a millimeter with every one that you go up. So that's not overly precise. It's all right for this kind of thing. But if you're doing very precise work, what you can do is hold down the Control key and notice it actually goes down to thousandths of a millimeter. Which is a lot more precise, but for now I'm not too fussed about that. Really need it rough, so I'm going to put it in, and 4.2 seems to do us pretty well. So with that done, I'm going to hit space to drop the tool. I'm going to hit X to extrude, right click in the viewport and extrude this guy up slightly. Now notice that this angle is a lot different to this angle, so obviously we're going to have to do a bit of editing. So I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, 1 to go to vert mode, grab these end verts, W for the move tool and pull this up so it just rests inside the pedal like that. Now if we go to perspective mode, no one is ever going to see this top polygon. So I'm going to delete it. I'm going to hit space to drop this move tool. I'm going to go to polygon mode, select this guy and hit delete to get rid of it. And it's kind of a good thing to clean up your model as you go along. If no one's going to see anything, there's no point in putting any detail in there. It'll just make the model much more dense, the file size will go up, it'll just be harder to work with. So if you delete things as you go along, it makes things a lot easier. So that, if we bring back the pedal top now, so click the eye, or where the eye would be, on the pedal top layer, we now have the main blocked out body of the pedal completed. And with that done, now would be a very, very good time to save. So I'm going to come up to the File menu, I'm going to click Save As, and we're going to save this as 1_ main body blocked out. Just out C, and hit enter, and we saved it. You can tell it's saved because it's changed the file name up over there. So now we're going to move on to the bevels on this top part of the pedal. So I'm going to hide the main body by clicking the pedal top layer and clicking the eye next to main body. And then going to zoom in a little bit. And what we have to do is bevel these top edges. So I'm going to go into edge mode and start selecting, holding down shift. And once I've got all of these, there's just one more, that guy. Now I'm going to hit bevel, which is the B key on my keyboard. I'm going to right click to activate within the viewport, and notice we don't get the red handle with this one. With edge bevel you only get the blue handle because you can't shift the edges essentially. So what we can do is bevel this in slightly, and notice at the moment we only get 2 lines on the side of the bevel. If we go to round level we can bring that up and it automatically smooths out the beveled edge a little bit more, so it gives us that round edge that we're looking for. Now round level of 2 looks good, let's try 3. I think around level of 3 looks pretty good for us. If we go to the side view, we can see that that beveled edge is matching up pretty good because we took the time to move these verts into position when we made the initial polygon. So if I go back to perspective, I'm going to check over one more time. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and those are our beveled edges on that. Now before we move on to the main body, I'm going to go to the bottom of this section and select this bottom polygon. I'm then going to hit B to bevel that, right click to activate the tool, and with the red handle, which is now inset, I'm going to inset that in slightly, just a little bit, about 1.1 millimeters looks good. I'm then going to shift click in the viewport, and what that does is basically reactivate the bevel tool without dropping it. So it's kind of a quick way of doing one bevel, then doing another bevel, and you can carry on as many times as you want. And notice when you shift click, this went from 1.1 millimeters back to 0, so it's reset the settings. And from there I can move the blue handle up to about there. That looks pretty good, so it's about -5.4. And if I go into the side view, we can see that it's popping out a little bit of the back there, but that's okay for the minute, so I'm going to hit space to drop the bevel tool, and now it's a case of moving these verts in slightly, which would be a lot easier if we could see through the pedal. So I'm going to come up to where it says texture at the moment, I'm going to click and go to wireframe. Now I'm going to select these verts by hitting the 1 key to go to vert mode, selecting them with the right click lasso, activate the move tool with the W key, and move these guys roughly into position. It doesn't need to be precise, no one's going to see in there, so I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about it. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to go back to shaded mode, go back to perspective, I'm going to drop the move tool, select this inner polygon and hit the delete key to get rid of it because no one's ever going to see that. Now with that done, we need to bevel this bottom edge. So I'm going to go to edge mode by hitting 2 on my keyboard, and I'm going to double click an edge, and what that does is select the entire edge loop. Now I want to get this inside edge as well, so what I'm going to do is hold shift and double click, and that adds another loop to the selection. With that done, I'm going to hit B one more time, right click in the viewport, and we're going to edge bevel those ever so slightly. So if we do that, about 200, maybe 250, maybe 200 a little bit. Minimum 300, that looks about cool, but you'll notice that we've still got that round level, we've still got a lot of extra edges in there, and to be fair I don't really want it for this bit, so I'm going to move this round level back to 0, which gives us a bit more of a harsh edge there than the round one up here, but that looks cool, so I'm going to press space to drop the tool, sorry, move out, and that is our top pedal beveled. We're now going to start adding our bevels to the main body layer, so we need to bring the main body back. So I'm going to come up here to the item list, I'm going to click the eye next to the main body layer and select it, so we're working on that layer. I'm then going to click the eye next to where it says pedal top, and then come around to the back of the pedal. Now before we start selecting edges, I'm going to turn on symmetry, which will save us a bit of time. Now you'll notice that our model is symmetrical across the x-axis, which is this one here. So I'm going to come up to where it says symmetry and click on X. And what this means is that if I select an edge or a vert or a poly on one side of the x-axis, it should select it on the other as well, which is just going to save us a bit of time. So I'm going to carry on selecting some edges. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select these guys, and then this long one at the side. Now we should go on and select these front ones as well, but before we do, I'm going to bring up that little problem that I mentioned earlier. Now if we click B for bevel, right click in the viewport and start dragging out a bevel on these edges, everything, to begin with at least, looks fine. However, if I start adding in the round level, so I'm going to bring this up to 3, like our pedal top, and hit enter, and if I come and zoom in onto these corner polygons, you'll see that they're nothing like the nice rounded corners that we had on the pedal top. They look really, really ugly. Something strange is definitely going on with the bevel tool. So I'm going to undo that a couple times, going to hit Ctrl Z, and try and explain why that's happening. Now essentially, we're looking at this corner vert here. So you've got these 3 sides that are coming into this corner vert. This side here, if you look at the edges that are coming in from this side of the pedal into this vert, you've got 2 edges, top one and this side one here. So these are all converging at this vertice. The same goes for the back polygons. You've got this edge along the top and this edge along the side that are converging at this vert. Now for these top edges, which makes up the top of the main body, you actually have 3 edges that are coming in and converging at this vert, and this is what is giving us our problem. Modo is having a very hard time trying to correctly distribute the polygons needed for that round corner, given that we've got these 3 edges converging at this vert. So what we really need to do is figure out a way to get rid of this problematic middle edge, so that we only have 2 edges converging at this vert from this top section. And although we could just delete the edge with the backspace key, it would be better to try and do it in a way that maintains all of our quad polygons. So what I'm going to do is deselect by clicking off. I'm then going to activate the edge slice tool by hitting C on my keyboard. Now the edge slice tool, which can be found in the basic tab under add geometry, basically allows you to add extra edges in existing polygons. So what I can do is click and drag on an edge, and you get this little percentage slider. So basically 0 is at one end of the edge and 100 is at the other end of the edge. Now for this point we need 100%. We want to be right on this corner here. I'm then going to release the mouse. I'm then going to click on another edge and start dragging that until it's in the correct position, and once it's in the correct position you can release the mouse. So about 6.5 looks good. I'm then going to continue this new edge down the back of the pedal. So I'm going to click on this edge in the middle. When I'm happy with that, I'm going to click on this bottom edge. And when I'm happy that I've finished, I'm going to hit space to drop the tool. Now you'll notice that with symmetry on, the edges have been created on the other side as well, and this is obviously a great thing because it means that the number of operations you have to do has been cut in half by using symmetry. So I'm going to come over to this other side. I'm going to hit C for the edge slice tool again and drag this down to this corner so it's at 0, so you know it's right at the very corner of that edge. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click on this edge, drag about a little bit. That looks pretty good, and then continue this down the side. Clicking on edges, and when you're happy, space to drop the tool, and then we can go to edge mode, select this diagonal edge, and then I'm going to hit backspace on my keyboard, which will delete it. Now you notice that all of this has been done on the other side as well. And just to make sure that this sorts out that beveled corner for us, I'm going to go to edges mode, select these corner edges, click B on my keyboard, and right click. Now if we find the handle, which is there, I'm going to bevel out like before, and then when we add a round level in, hopefully things should look a little bit better, and they do. They look exactly like the pedal top. We've got this nice rounded corner, and the reason again why that is, it's an important thing to know if I undo. Essentially now we have these 3 faces that converge at this vert, and each one of them has 2 lines on its boundary converging into it. So we've got these 3 here, instead of having a 4th one coming from this vert to this vert. So we've cleaned it up, and now all we need to do is repeat that on this top edge. So I'm going to quickly deselect what I've got by clicking off. I'm going to reactivate the slice tool and quickly add in those edges down here like this. With that done, I'm going to hit space to drop the tool and do this one more time. I'm going to hit C, drag to this edge, and we're going to come down the front of the pedal, over the lip, underneath the screen, and down the very front. And then I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and we can go in and delete that extra diagonal edge like that. So with that done, we can now actually start beveling the edges as needed. So I'm going to come to the back, start selecting some edges, come up the side there, then come around to the front. Ooh, don't forget that guy. Now we're going to ignore the lip for the minute. We're going to ignore all of that and just do the very, very biggest bevels. So I'm going to come down and grab these as well. Now I'm going to hit B for bevel, right click in my viewport and drag the handle out. Now I'm going to make it probably about 2.2. I think that looks pretty good. Then if we add in a round level of 3, you'll notice that we've got these nice round corners here. The lip has a nice rounded edge. This edge is nice and rounded as it is on the real model. Then if we come to the back, just to check one more time, these guys now look cool as well, so that's all good. So I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and then we need to go in and start tweaking some verts. Right, so I'm going to go to a left view and come and zoom in on this lip a little bit. Now what you'll notice is that the top of this lip is nicely angled, but these new verts that we made as a result of the bevel are kind of going straight down, so we need to move these into position. Now there are a couple ways you can do that in Modo. You could obviously select a vert, activate the move tool with the W key, and then kind of move it, and then you have to go up here into wireframe mode and then kind of move these into position. But we're not going to do that, so I'm going to undo that a couple times by hitting Control Z. And then I'm going to come up here to shaded mode. We're going to grab all of these verts, and then we're going to use a fall-off. Now the fall-offs are up here next to symmetry, and if you click it, you get a list of all of the fall-offs that are available to you. These are covered quite extensively in the Modo documentation, so I'm not going to go over all of them, but the one that we're going to be using is the linear fall-off. So I'm going to click that guy, and then going to zoom in a little bit. Now this is best kind of demonstrated practically, so what I'm going to do is click and hold next to this top vert, drag down and then release next to this bottom vert. And you'll notice that what this does is create this cone shape, and this is basically like a multiplier for anything that you might do for these verts. For instance, if we were to move them 1 centimeter to the left, this vert, where it is the large end of the cone, the big end of the cone, gets a 100% multiplier. So it moves 100% of 1 centimeter, which is 1 centimeter. So it moves as far as you drag it. At this end, where it's all kind of very, very small on the fall-off, it's a 0%. So 1 centimeter times 0% is obviously 0. And the verts in between have a linear fall-off along that path. So if I select the Move tool with the W key and start moving these to the left, what you'll notice is that that bottom vert moves a considerably larger amount than that top one. And all the ones in between linearly follow the line between the top and bottom verts. So what I'm going to do is keep kind of moving left until these verts line up with this edge roughly. It's not going to be exact, but that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, come up to fall off, and click none to turn it off. With that done, I can go to perspective mode, and we're going to start beveling this lip. Now I'm going to deselect these verts, and you'll notice that we've got this edge here at the moment, and this is basically the same situation as that back edge. It's kind of in a weird position. It's going to cause the bevel to go a little bit haywire. So what I'm going to do is select that edge, backspace key to delete it. Now if we were to bevel this now, you notice that these two edges here are extremely close together at the bottom, and that's going to give us a bunch of problems. In fact, if I start selecting a couple of these edges, just those will do, and then hit B for bevel, right click to activate the tool. I'm going to turn the round level down to 0 before we begin, and then bevel them. Now we're going to want to bevel it probably about that much. If I zoom in, you'll see that we've got an extremely close couple of edges down here, and it's going to start intersecting and giving us some problems. So what we're going to do is sort that out by redirecting the flow of polygons slightly. Now you notice in this bevel we've got these two flows of polygons. We've got this one coming down the side and this one coming down here, and what we're doing when we select these edges is basically say have these but stop them here, and that's giving us this kind of awkward area at the bottom here. So what we can do is continue this flow down the side of the pedal and continue this flow across the front of the pedal, and that will kind of sort this area out for us. So I'm going to undo a couple of times. I'm going to continue selecting the rest of these edges. So I'm going to press space to drop the bevel tool and then continue selecting these edges. I'm going to select two edges there, and then if you hit the up arrow, Modo will continue selecting for you, and that's a big time saver. We've still got symmetry on, so this is all selected on the other side as well. Then, as I said, we're going to continue this flow down the pedal. So I'm going to select this edge, and I'm also going to select this edge. So this kind of gives us a nice area here, and what I'm trying to do basically is give us any problem areas in the middle of a flat polygon instead of on a kind of awkward rounded edge here. So if I bevel now, I'm going to hit B, right click to activate the tool. Where's the handle? It'll be over here somewhere, I think. So we can move that. Oh, the handle doesn't want to work for some reason. Okay, well, that's okay. It's a little bit of a buggy thing in Modo. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to use the value slider. I'm going to hold down Control to get a little bit more precise movements and start dragging. We're going to drag this out to probably about 50, I think will probably be pretty good. 45, 50. Oh, close. 50, 50. There you go. So what we've got now is we've got these kind of nice set of edges down here. We've got this polygon flow that's going down, and this one that's going around like that, and that kind of cleans things up a little bit for us. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to drop the tool by hitting space, and I'm going to start tweaking some verts around. Now the downside to this is you notice we selected this edge here, and I didn't select these front edges, so we got this kind of awkward section, but that's absolutely fine. We're going to sort that out in a little bit. So I'm going to zoom in over here, and we need to start making some quad polygons. Now I'm going to drop this current selection just by clicking off, and you'll notice that we've got one vert here, one there, and we've got this vert up here. So what I'm going to do is use the edge slice tool to slice a new edge between that, and this gives us our first quad poly. And then going to continue this up and do this again between these two verts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes a quad polygon, and then we can start doing this across the top. So I'm going to draw a new edge between these guys, and what I'm doing is exactly like the bevel tool. You can hold down shift when a tool is active, and if I start sliding on an edge again, what it does is basically create a new slice for us. So it resets the values and then starts creating an entirely new slice. So I'm going to create one here between those two, and then one more, I think, between these guys. Now what I'm going to do is take these across the side of the pedal. So I'm going to drag again and come across here like this. Now I'm not going to worry about getting this too precise because it's in the middle of a flat polygon, so we're not going to get any shading issues. And one more, and what you notice is that if I do this 3 times and hit space, we get this quad polygon in the corner as well. So now all of this is made up of quads. Now I obviously need to continue these edges across the poly, so I'm going to select this top guy, drag down to it, and select that. I'm going to select this middle one, come over again, and select it there, and then finally shift click and drag on that bottom one and join that up. And now all of these are quad polygons, which is exactly what we want. So with that done, the lips are looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit of a tweak there. No, I think that looks fine. So we're now going to sort out this edge running around the front. So what I'm going to do is use a new tool, which is called the loop slice tool. Now, what you do for this is you select an edge, so I'm going to select this one, then you hold down Alt and C, and it brings up the loop slice options. So that's Alt and C. If you then right click in the viewport, you activate it interactively. Now what you'll notice is that we get two things. We get a line across the flow of polygons, and we get this kind of slider thing up here. Now why is this stopping here? It's stopping there because this is currently a 5-sided polygon, and so it doesn't quite know where to go along the edge flow. All of these are quad polys, so they're being cut in the middle. So what I can do is I can slide left and right in the viewport, and what this will do is drag that edge up and down all of those quad polygons. So what we want is we want a new edge somewhere near the top, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit, about there. So this is kind of equidistant, so 98% looks pretty good, so I'm going to drop the tool, and then what we're going to do is 2 things. Essentially what we need to do is get rid of this 5-sided polygon and join this up as a quad. So I'm going to select this top vert here, and then actually no, I'm going to select this vert here, I think, and then this vert here, and what we're going to do is merge them together or join them. We're going to join this first one to the second one. So what we're going to go is to the vertex menu, and you notice we've got join and join averaged. Now join takes the first vert you selected and joins it to the second vert. Join average basically takes the middle of the 2 verts, or the 3, or 100 verts you've got selected, and basically merges them all together right in the center. So we're going to use join for this. So I selected this one first and then this one. I'm going to click join. We get this little menu up. I'm not going to use these settings, I'm just going to hit OK. and you notice we get that join. So it says 4 vertices joined, and I'm going to hit OK. Why 4? Because we've got symmetry on and it's happening on the other side. So we've got 2 on this side and 2 on the other. Now you'll notice we've got this weird shading going on, and that's currently because this polygon is, what would that be? That's a 6-sided polygon now. So what we're going to do is basically join this up and this up using the slice tool. So I'm going to hit C, drag an edge down there, and drag an edge up there. And what we can actually do is grab this vert, so I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, select this vert, W for the move tool, and then just pull that down slightly to make this look a little bit nicer. With that done, we can move on to the bottom of the pedal. But before we do, we're going to save again, just in case. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to go to _main body bevels and hit save. And so we're saved and we're ready to attack the bottom of the pedal. Now at this point I've introduced you to most of the tools we're going to be using in the tutorial, so I'm going to start speeding up my workflow slightly. Now if we take a look at the bottom, you'll notice that it's made up of these 2 giant polygons, but remember we added this extra edge down the side when we beveled this top lip, and that's creating a bit of an error for us. If we zoom in we can see it. We're going to have to clean this up before we can start the bottom. So I'm going to go to Edge Mode, select these 3 edges. They're being selected on the other side as well thanks to symmetry, and I'm going to hit Backspace to delete them. Now we've got this one giant polygon on the bottom of the pedal, which makes things a bit easier to work with. If we take a look at the bottom references quickly, you can see that we have to inset this polygon slightly and then shift it up inside the pedal. So I'm going to do that now by hitting the B key on my keyboard, right clicking, using the handle to inset slightly, and when it matches up roughly, I'm going to go to Perspective View. I'm going to shift click to reactivate the bevel tool, and then shift this up slightly inside the pedal. When you're happy with that, you can hit space to drop the tool. The final thing we're going to do in this tutorial is to create the bottom pad. So I'm going to come over here and create a new mesh item and rename it to bottom pad. I'm then going to go to the bottom view to take a look at what we're modeling. Now you notice that the pad looks a little bit like a cross. We have this long middle section and these side parts which extrude out, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to come up to here and grab the cube tool and sketch out this middle section. So just like before, you kind of get it to where you want it. When you're happy, move that out one maybe, in a little bit. That looks pretty good, that looks pretty good. When you're happy, you hit space to drop the tool. Now you notice we can't select it, so it's facing away from us currently, so I'm going to hit the F key on my keyboard to flip it around. Then we're going to use a tool that we haven't used before called the slice tool, and that's activated using Shift-C shortcut on your computer. Now the slice tool, creates a new edge along the slice. So what I can do is click and hold there, and then drag out across the entire polygon. We're adding in this edge at the bottom of the curve here. Now if I press space, we've added in that new edge. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom here, so I'm going to deselect that edge. I'm going to activate the slice tool with Shift-C, click there and drag across to create the new edge, and shift, and you'll notice that it's there. Now what I'm going to do is grab both of these edges, hit the Z key to activate the edge extend, right click to activate, and extrude these out a little bit to match up with that. With that done, I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and I'm going to go to perspective mode. Now we need to extrude these polys up into the body of the pedal. So to do that, I'm going to go to poly mode and double click it to select all of them. I'm going to go to the left view, hit the X key on my keyboard to activate the extrude tool, right click in the viewport and pull them up slightly. And with them there, I now want to delete these top faces. So what I'm going to do is hit space to drop the tool, lasso select around all of these top faces and hit delete to get rid of them. Now you might notice that we've got a slope here, meaning these bottom faces are slightly smaller than it is at the top here. So I'm going to select all of these bottom faces now and activate the scale tool, which is the R key on my keyboard. Now you notice that with symmetry activated, the scale gizmo will not be in the middle of the polygon, so we have to temporarily disable symmetry. So I'm going to switch that to off, and the gizmo will move to the center. With that done, I'm going to use this cross in the middle of the gizmo to scale down uniformly on all axes. I'm then going to go to the left view and try and match this scale here. So I'm going to scale up slightly because we slightly overestimated it. So something like that looks good. I'll then go to a front or back view and just use the x-axis to match that. With that done, we're a little bit off, so we're going to move that about. So I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, go to vertice mode, select these verts. Actually, we're going to turn symmetry back on first, turn it onto X, and then select these verts here, which will select those over there as well, and we're going to move these out slightly to match the ref. We'll then go to a left view, select these, pull them out to match the ref, and do the same down here. Like that. With that done, we can go to perspective mode, and we can start beveling these edges in slightly. So what I'm going to do is hit the 2 key on my keyboard to go to edges mode and select these edges inside. And with that done, I'm going to go to the bottom view, activate the bevel tool with the B key on my keyboard, and right click. Now I'm going to pull out and drag slightly to create that bevel. Now you notice we've only got a round level of 0 at the moment, so we haven't got quite enough geometry, so I'm going to up that to 2, which will create a nice bevel in there. And although this isn't quite at that reference, I'm just looking to match the shape of this curve. So something like that looks pretty good to me. So once you're happy, you can drop the tool, or you can check the other side first, which I'm going to do quickly. And yes, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to drop the tool and go to perspective mode. Now you notice when we beveled it, we created these extra polygons here, and I'm actually going to get rid of those at the moment. So I'm going to go to poly mode and delete all of these polygons inside this bottom pad. With that done, I'm going to double click an edge loop to select the entire loop, hit P to create a new polygon, and then we can bevel this edge here. So I'm just going to, with this edge loop selected, hit B on my keyboard, right click, set the round level to 0, and then pull out slightly to create that bevel. Something like that looks about good. Then notice we've got this shading issue here, and we can fix that by beveling in this top polygon slightly. So I'm going to go to poly mode, select that, and oh wait, I forgot to drop the bevel tool there when changing modes, so we're actually still beveling those edges. So I'm going to hit space to drop that bevel tool, and with this top polygon selected, I'm going to hit the B key again, right click, and then we can inset it. And that's something to look out for. Sometimes when you change modes, you don't drop tools in Modo, and if you've got the properties up here, you can always hit space to drop it and then move on to your next command. So with that done, we now have a nice beveled edge there. We have these guys beveled, and we have one last thing to do, which is to bevel these corners. So I'm going to select those. We've got those over there as well, and select these guys. I'm then going to double click to select the entire loop, hit B to bevel, right click to activate, and then we'll just pull this out slightly. Something like 200 or 300 looks good. Then I'm going to hit space to drop the tool, and that gives us this basic block out of the bottom pad section of the pedal. With that done, I'm going to save again, so I'm going to come up here to File and Save As, and we're going to type in 3_bottom pad blockout and hit save. Okay, and that brings us to the end of this first part of the tutorial, so I'm just going to bring back the pedal top to take a look at what we've done. And in the next section, we're going to be adding in the rest of the detail. And now that you know things like symmetry and falloffs, and you know about the things that kind of make Modo such a quick and easy modeler to use, we should really be able to ramp things up and speed this along a little bit. Now, I hope you managed to follow along and that I wasn't too incoherent in parts. Leave me a comment below if you've got any suggestions or any questions on what we've done, and I'll try to get back to you. But yeah, thanks, and I'll see you in part 2.